Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. Tisha here, back for another chapter reading of Shattered Dreams Restored. We are on chapter 5, Heartache. My marriage to Verlin had been dream shattering to say the least. Now that I was free from his dominance, I once again began dreaming of never again sharing a man with multiple wives. I will have a love of my very own. I thought I missed out on so much love. As a child, I missed out on my father's love, the parental, protective kind of love for which my heart ached and constantly longed. As I grew older, I could not hold it against Dad. Ugh. Y'all, I'm not there. I think about all the adults in my life, right? And the things that I've been through. And I haven't reached that level of forgiveness where I can't hold it against them, because I very much so hold certain things against certain people. But it just goes to show you the level of forgiveness that she's at and where she's at in her journey, that she's able to say, look, he did things that I didn't like. He hurt me. He wasn't there for me. He didn't love me the way that I needed him to love me, but I don't hold it against him. As I grew older, I couldn't hold it against Dad. He must have been overwhelmed trying to fill the needs of all his wives and 31 children. I'm sure he tried to the best of his ability to give of himself to each one of us, but I still felt invalidated, just lost in the shuffle of his numerous progeny. And instead of being nurtured and cared for, all I felt from my stepfather was loathing and abuse. But there was Lamont Robinson. I was only 10 when a neighbor who lived across the Jordan River behind our house took a shine to me. Lamont sent me love notes every chance he got. I thrived on the attention. No one ever pursued me as he did. He'd meet me at recess, inviting me to go to the playground and watch him play marbles with the boys. His surprising gifts of candy and jacks made me feel very special. When I promised to be his girlfriend, he bought me a beautiful blue silk flowered headscarf. I didn't care he was 2 years my senior. Not too long after we became an item, he invited me to meet his mom and dad. Puppy love is so cute. Let's keep going. I was excited that he considered me worthy to show me off. I'd already met his sister, Janine, and his little brother, Wally. His parents thought it was cute that their son had his first girlfriend. They doted on me, fed me, and insisted that I accompany them on excursions on the weekends. I loved being with his family. I went to Liberty Park on picnics in Salt Lake City, then to the amusement park, Salt Air for swimming, another time to Lagoon, a larger park where we spent the entire day on rides. We threw hoops and darts, and Lamont won a couple of stuffed animals, the first I'd ever owned. He and I were inseparable. He phoned me every day after school until mother got upset because I was always on the phone. Who hasn't gotten in trouble when they were younger for being on the phone too long with a boy? Or their friends. Mine was a boy because I had a lot more male friends growing up. If I wasn't on the phone with my cousins, I was on the phone with some boy. My best friend and I, we would be on the phone for hours to the point where my mom would walk in and she'd be like, tell G, you'll talk to him later. It was the same thing at his house. His mom would be like, tell T, you'll call her back. Hmm. Being a continual prankster, I convinced my half-brother John to help play a trick on Lamont. So he aided in carrying out my plan by calling Lamont. When Lamont answered, John lied, telling him that he was Gifford, who was Lamont's classmate, but not a friend. Hi, I'm over Irene's. Okay, Irene, these little jokes aren't cute, but whatever. We're going to keep reading. Hi, I'm over here at Irene's. She decided to be my girlfriend. Lamont hung up on him, then called back immediately to see if he could talk to me. Are you going with Gifford? That's all I want to know. Yes, I lied, hoping he'd want to fight for me to prove the extent of his love. Instead, he slammed down the receiver. The fact that at that young age of 10, she's wanting people to prove their love for her, shows that there was always a lack there for her from day one. Because that's kind of cunning and conniving and jacked up for a 10-year-old to do. Yeah, it seems like a little simple thing, and I'm not trying to delve too deep in it, but I'm just saying it shows her desperation for love, that she wanted him to prove himself. 10 minutes later, Lamont's mother called. She wanted to know why I made her son cry. What did you say to make him so upset? I was scared with remorse and embarrassment. I loved and respected this lady. I hated to admit to her what I'd done. But upon her insistence, I revealed that I tried to pull a prank on her son. I did not tell her that my half-brother John was posing as Gifford. The following day, the school bell rang for lunchtime. I hurried outside to the playground, hoping to find Lamont in our usual meeting places by the swings. As I approached, my immediate attention focused on a gathering crowd where a fight ensued. This boy done beat up this fight. The screaming and boisterous yells of my classmates convinced me that someone was getting beat up. When I joined the group, I caught a glimpse of two opponents. It was Lamont beating the tar out of innocent Gifford. Poor guy, he had no clue as to why he was being sludged so hard. Just then, the principal, Miss Pickle, appeared, yelling authoritatively. She yanked the 12-year-old boys apart. Stop this fighting. When they both realized they'd been caught by the principal herself, they got up from the dirt. Gifford's nose was bleeding, a fact that the principal, explaining to him that it had been an innocent joke. Wait, did I miss something? No, I didn't. A fact that the principal seemed to ignore. I did skip too much. Y'all, I'm sorry, but this click, click, click thing, sometimes I click too much. So it was a fact that the principal seemed to ignore. She demanded that both boys go inside the school and wait for her in the office. When the boys were out of her earshot, she questioned the lingering crowd as to the particulars of the fight. Who started it? Why were they fighting? I wanted no further trouble, so I explained to the principal that Gifford had been innocently attacked. I admitted the fight was started over me because Lamont thought Gifford had stolen me, who was his girlfriend. Surprised, I found myself as well, being pushed ahead of Miss Pickle to join the boys in her office. Yeah, Irene, that's what you get. You caused this problem, girl. You got to deal with it too. Embarrassed, I regretfully admitted my error, especially when both of the boys had to stay after school for punishment. Later, I begged Lamont for forgiveness, but he had lost all trust in me. So after 2 years, our relationship came to a complete abrupt end. She did this in hopes of getting this man to show how much she loved her. And what she ended up doing was losing him. And I'm not mad at him for doing that. I'm not mad at Lamont for being like, peace out, because you playing games. When class ended for the summer, the Robinsons moved away from Salt Lake City. No one ever knew my disappointment. I felt abandoned, wondering why Lamont had moved away without telling me goodbye. He didn't even tell me he was relocating. I longed to at least have closure by explaining to him that it had all been an innocent joke, but it was too late. My greatest regret was that I'd crushed him so completely. I couldn't believe that just because of one stupid act, I lost my dearest friend who had given me the 2 best years of puppy love. I wonder what that conversation with the mom was like, because she didn't tell the mom exactly what happened. No, she didn't, because she said she didn't admit that it was her brother who was on the phone. Okay. It caused me to wonder if I'd ever find someone else in my future who would fight for me. Someone who valued me enough to keep the Giffords from destroying our mutual bonds. This might be why she treated, I think, was it Glenn? The way that she did, and had that whole back and forth with him going on where he was chasing her. But we'll see. Just before I turned 15 and surrendered my pointed bras, Larry, a young 17-year-old who lived in the valley, invited me to go, on an errand with him. Mother allowed me to accompany him alone, which surprised me. She made it very clear in our serious conversation that I was not to date anyone who didn't uphold the gospel, which to her included plural marriage. Funny how she can't date anybody who doesn't hold the gospel, but she's married to someone who doesn't uphold it. See how there's a double standard there? You married that abuser with his bald head and his jacked up teeth, and you're over here telling her that she can't date anybody who doesn't uphold the gospel. But since he was doing someone else a favor, and his mother was her dear friend, she trusted me in his care. We drove to the southern end of the valley where Larry had me wait in the truck while he communicated with the two sisters who were spinsters. Upon our return home, Larry slowed down the truck, driving about 20 miles an hour. He seemed to want to take all the time he could. It was now dark, around 9:30 p.m., and I felt very uneasy. Then, to my horror, Larry began to fondle my breast. Against my will, he tried forcing me to kiss him, and he steered the truck with one hand. Having believed he was my friend, I was in complete shock. So I tried to convince him to quit, telling him he'd be in big trouble if he didn't get me home quickly. So he relented and drove a few minutes in silence. I knew he was mad because I rejected his advances. I calmed down a little, assuming I didn't have to worry anymore because we reached the road that led into our homestead. Larry turned off the gravel highway, then stopped the motor. Chills of fear ran through my body. Please, Larry, please take me home. You know I'm not taking you home till I get what I want. You know what's so sad about these situations? Most of the time when someone is assaulted, touched, harmed in certain ways, it's by people who are close to them. And this is another example. Her mother is trusting this young man with her child, and here you are, and you're doing the very opposite of what you're supposed to be doing, which is you're not protecting her and you're bringing harm to her. He slid over, grabbing me with both hands. His roughness hurt as he pinched my firm breast. He held me in his grip passionately, forcing his kisses on me. Then the next thing I knew, he was trying to unzip my blue jeans, trying to force them down. I'd never been more shocked or terrified. When I realized he was overpowering me, I began to fight him off. I could tell he was determined to rape me. He grabbed my long braids, subduing me as he unzipped his pants with his other hand. As I fought, he banged my head several times on the truck door. I bit his hands, trying to stop him. Petrified, I managed to open my door as we forcefully wrestled. Finally, he shoved me out of the door and he dove out behind me into the sand, pinning me beneath his body. The fact that this ninja is so desperate that he's doing all of this to somebody who says no shows how sick he is. People like this are sick. They are. He tried unsuccessfully to force my blue jeans down below to my knees. I put up a fight of my life as we scuffled in the sand. At that moment, I feared God more than Larry. My Mormon God required that I stay a virgin until marriage, or I wouldn't be found worthy to be saved. Mother vehemently warned us girls that we were to give up our lives before we relinquished our virginity. So I fought like hell. Somehow, I broke away from his clutches. I ran down the sandy road through the sage and mesquites, taking a shortcut to my house. I never prayed so hard as I hightailed it through the homestead, hoping to outrun Larry and find safety. When he realized I was outrunning him, he stopped, momentarily out of breath, swearing as he threatened that if I told anyone, I'd pay for it. Though fearful Larry would retaliate, I ran breathlessly into the safety of Mother's room. She retired early, leaving one lonely coal oil lamp lit on the kitchen table. I woke her from a deep sleep, sobbing as I told her about my narrow escape. She reprimanded me for accompanying him in the first place. When you go through something like that, the last thing you need is an adult fussing at you about you being around somebody. I don't care what people say. In my opinion, it is not the victim's fault. It is not the person's fault who was in this ride with him. She did nothing. And even if she was kissing him or anything else like that, it still wouldn't be her fault. So her mother sitting here saying that it's her fault shows how flawed a lot of people are when it comes to situations like this. Go to bed, dear, and forget it ever happened. It's another missed thing because she can't forget that it happened. He assaulted her, and you want her to forget it? Tears of rage moistened my pillow as I tried to sort out who I was the most furious with, Larry or my mother. I felt so let down. It seemed that mother lived in denial or didn't allow herself to listen to my complaints because she lived in her own ethereal world. I was convinced that my mother could not protect me or fulfill my emotional needs. I wondered how she could address my pain when she never addressed her own. Before I finally fell asleep, I promised myself that when I got married, I'd give my children all the attention I lacked as a child. I would touch them reassuringly, listen to them, sing soothing songs, and be their best friend. And I have. My heart goes out to people who've been through situations where they were assaulted and they weren't believed. That's part of the reason why some people don't come forward, is because they are in fear that they will not be believed. And I'm reading this and I'm just happy that I was believed. Cause that's rough. You run to your mom to tell your mom what's happened to you and how this guy attacked you and how he tried to rape you, and she tells you to forget about it. Ooh, that's rough. And I understand her mom, got her own stuff that she was dealing with, but I find it really, really hard to let stuff like that go. I really, really do, y'all. My unhappy encounter with Larry just proved all the more that my mother was right. Really? She repeatedly told me that men outside our group were lustful. Oh, that their desires were to defile virtuous women. It's not necessarily true, but because it seems like the men in your group are lustful as well. Like, let's not put it on the Gentiles. Let's just put it on certain beings. Ingrained in my mind was the fact that only men who lived polygamy and held the holy priesthood were candidates to marry a fundamentalist Mormon girl. Desperately searching to fill the open wound in my heart, I found solace in the summer of my 15th year. Glenn Spencer was Horace's nephew, an only child born to his unwed mother. He also lived on the Nielsen Ranch and was postmaster in the small one-room postal service. Isolation plus lack of social gatherings kept him single. We were drawn to one another because of convenience and our mutual sense of loneliness. I often joined Glenn in the small parts of the office while he sorted the mail. Never before had I experienced such satisfaction in my conversations. Finally, I found someone who listened to me, someone who recognized my potential and self-worth. Soon, within my soul, a bond of love formed between us. For the first time in my life, I felt my wounded heart soften as I began to blossom. The 3 months of summer vacation was a deliriously joyful time in my life. Glenn and I were inseparable. The fact that he was 14 years my senior didn't even faze me, because among the fundamentalists, it was the norm for 13 and 14-year-old girls to marry. We became best friends. My heart rejoiced, longing for a love of my own. Glenn and I also worked side by side at the ranch, using pitchforks to load the large piles of dried alfalfa onto a horse-drawn wagon. The work was challenging and backbreaking. The June heat was almost unbearable, but we persevered, enjoying every tiring minute we were together. In the evenings, we ate supper with the Nielsen clan. Then we'd lie on our backs on the lawn beneath the tall cottonwood trees as we gazed into the heavens in awe. The stars seemed so near, giving the impression they could be plucked like diamonds from the sky. Our laughter and playfulness continued until bedtime. Excuse me. Then Glenn would drive me home to our homestead in his family Kaiser. Man, it's clicking. I was a bit nervous when Glenn suggested I ride with him on his Harley, but I smothered my fear, clinging on to him for dear life as we zoomed over the graded gravel roads. I bounced hard, jolting my insides as we hit the washboard road. We left trails of white dust which could be seen for several miles. We carefully drove his motorcycle up the rocky terrain as I clung to him for safety. We continued on, creeping onto narrow cow trails along the mountain's edge. Glenn's face beamed with satisfaction when he finally found his favorite fishing hole. I've never shared this spot with anyone else before. Then suddenly, beside the babbling creek, nature seemed to pause. Irene Coons, will you marry me? My joy seemed to blend with the whole universe. Locked in each other's arms, we promised that our love would endure forever. One evening at the ranch house, Glenn and I sat together on a wooden piano bench. With his right index finger, he struck the piano keys as he composed a song for me. Two hearts met, a beautiful love affair started, for it was romance. Their love was for each other only. They never would be sad and lonely if they only take the chance. It happened when two hearts met. The tune has remained in my heart over 60 years. I offered to arise at 5 a.m. each morning and join him in feeding the hogs. I drive the team of horses, pulling a wooden wagon loaded with sacks of corn and mixed grain. Glenn grabbed his sacks and dumped them into the feeders as I moved along the hog pens. He quickly emptied 100-pound sack into the troughs. The smell from the hog pens, plus the constant squeals from the huge animals, unnerved me. However, I watched in amazement as several pregnant souls gave birth to their little piglets. In spite of getting up early, and despite the times when gusts of winds blew the foul, smelly dust into my hair, I didn't complain. I found satisfaction in alleviating Glenn's heavy responsibility. Just being in his presence seemed to fill the emptiness I felt. As usual, I joined Glenn in the small post office while he sorted the mail. He placed each person's mail in their own canvas bag to be delivered throughout the valley, where it would be deposited into their metal boxes along the side of the road. At the head of each person's property, he was all smiles when he grabbed his package from Sears, Roebuck and Company. Let's lock up. I have a surprise for you. We walked about 100 yards to our favorite spot on the lawn behind the house, under the shade of the tall, rustling cottonwood trees. He hastily tore open the package. Inside was a small gray jewelry box. He thrust it into my expectant hands. Open it, he said breathlessly. I did, then swallowed hard to keep back the tears. On a delicate 14-karat gold chain was a golden heart with 2 diamonds on each side. Glenn reached in, pulling the necklace out. He opened the clasp on the heart. See, inside is a place for our pictures. He then kissed me long and tenderly. Let me place this on you. He exerted his large fingers as he tried several times to hook the clasp so the chain would be secure around my neck. Do you like it, Irene? I brought this gift, a heart to remind you that you've stolen mine. He smiled lovingly. I could see the twinkle in his blue eyes. This is a token of our engagement, he said, wrapping me tightly in his embrace. He kissed my face tenderly several times. I was speechless. I never owned any jewelry before. This gift was more than anything I'd ever dreamed of. I'm sorry, but this will have to make do until we can go to Salt Lake and pick out your ring. Tenderly, I held him, knowing I found someone who thought that I did value. Knowing that I found someone who thought I really did value after all. Mother was happy at the news. She knew there was a major conflict between Horace and me. As much as she loved me, she thought I'd be happier married and on my own. My euphoria was immediately pierced with guilt. I made the biggest decisions of my life. I couldn't sleep at night as deep contemplation filled the long, fitful hours. The one hindrance that would keep me from marrying Glenn was my Mormon religion. I got a question, y'all, especially if you've been here and you were here for the other book. Do you think that she really loved Glenn? Because I go back and forth on it. I think that she did, but loving someone and being in love with someone is different. So, okay, let me rephrase that. Do you think that she was in love with Glenn? A few tongues wagged through the valley when people heard I was considering marriage at such a young age. Ugly rumors even circulated that I might be pregnant. When I found myself falling in love with Glenn, I did not think it out of the ordinary to date at age 15. In all polygamous groups, most girls were married by then, and sometimes even younger. I would venture to say that it wasn't just polygamous groups. I'd say back then some people were marrying young, because I didn't know this until later in life, but my great-grandmother, she got married at 15. So there are some places and some people who were getting married young. So I just let it happen. I spent every waking moment I could with Glenn so I could be out from under Mother and Horace's jurisdiction. Okay, see, that statement there makes it feel like it's not love. It's just you want to be free, which, with them, a lot of them want to be free from their parents. It seemed as though I waited forever, hoping someone would rescue me from my unfortunate circumstances. I was positive that the one person who was capable of fulfilling that dream was Glenn Spencer himself. After I justified my wanting a monogamous relationship with him, hoping that Glenn or Mother would be held responsible for my actions, then I'd not be judged by God. So I felt great consternation. Consternation? I'm saying that wrong. Alexa, how do you pronounce Consternation?
Sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
Alexa don't even know. I think it's consternation. When my half-sister, Donna, arrived unexpectedly at 3 a.m. with her husband, Clyde, I wondered if it was a sign from God. Had he purposely sent them to save me from monogamy? We all stayed at Nielsen Ranch during the night, hoping to leave at daybreak for Salt Lake City, where Glenn and I would marry. I answered the knock on the door. Insomnia had kept me awake. Stunned, yet in a way relieved, I blurted out to Donna and to Clyde, "You've come to save me." Not wanting to wake up anyone else in the household, the three of us returned to Clyde's car where we could converse privately. My sister, who was Clyde's second wife, spoke with great urgency, reminding me that I would be making the biggest mistake of my life if I went through with my plans to marry Glenn. I felt physically ill, as though my heart was literally being twisted and forcibly wrenched from my chest. Never in my life have I wanted anyone or anything so desperately as I wanted Glenn. No one had ever given me so much love and validation. If I were to give him up, I felt as though I would die. After about an hour into our private conversation, I noticed Glenn approaching the car. He had heard us leaving the house and grew concerned after we'd been gone an hour. He could hear our excited discussion, and I'm sure he felt he should be part of it. Not wanting to be held accountable for any of my decisions, I asked Donna what I should do. I admitted that my necklace from Glenn was an engagement gift. Her suggestion was that I should be strong, just face the music once and for all. Irene, you must return the gift he's given you, then we'll get you out of this place. Well, we'll convince your mother that it's best for you to return to Hurricane and finish your schooling. Those were the longest, most painful steps I'd ever taken. As though in slow motion, I walked toward Glenn in the early dawn. I ran into his arms weeping, unable to voice my predicament. He held me tight as though he were my protector. Glenn, I sobbed, I can't marry you. I'll go to hell if I do. Completely crushed, he pled as he tried, walking me away from their earshot. Between my mournful sobs, I insisted he take back the necklace he'd given me. No. He pushed my hand away in rejection. I gave it to you with a promise. If you're not going to keep your commitment, that's your problem. I pressed him further, trying to insist he take it. He burst into tears, pulling my body into his. He spoke defiantly. Don't let them do this to you. I beg of you not to listen to anyone. Please, Irene, we'll work this out. Clyde was impatient with me as he sounded the horn. It was my cue to return to the car. I couldn't face Donna until I returned my gift. I quickly thrust the necklace into his hand. I trembled with indecision, forcing myself to turn back and walk away. Please, Irene, don't let them control you, please. I wanted to turn around and run into his arms where I could remain forever, but the pull of religion was just far too intense. It drew me unwillingly away from the person who I loved the most. There were no words to describe the brokenness and despair I felt. My mind is still filled with regrets because I was too fearful to take the chance. I was too brainwashed. Even though I loved and needed him, old religious teachings played over and over in my mind. Okay, so maybe she did love him. Guilt drove me to believe that it was my duty to follow in the footsteps of my people from my previous 4 generations and become a polygamous wife. I knew I was walking out of Glenn's life forever, but I tearfully gave up Glenn, my first true love, in order to obey my Mormon God's command. It's strange, after so many years of indoctrination, that I could be lured into a religious coma. I later realized how the seeds of fundamentalism inhibited and warped my awareness of reality. When I considered my future destiny, I quickly reminded myself that I needed to forfeit my own longingness and dedicate myself to my religion. My jailer guilt kept me from making any sound choices. Besides, I held the certainty of knowing that I was just a woman, part of breeding stock that kept the fundamentalist movement expanding and alive. I was just a woman is how she says it. Because that's all women are there for, is to expand these guys' kingdoms. To expand kingdoms and to work. That's what these ladies do. As the men go away and do whatever it is that they want to do and just keep adding more wives and more children to their kingdom. I understood my place and what role I've been born for. It was for the sole purpose of bearing the souls of men. It still haunts me to think of the choking hold that held me mentally captive after a lifetime of brainwashing. Yeah, it's a lifetime, all right. And we've seen this play out in other shows. It's sad how, when you think about it, these people have been so ingrained in this and they've been browbeated with the same stuff over and over and over and over again, that this is really a struggle for them to leave because they think that if they don't, they're going to be damned. After the breakup, I moved to Murray, Utah to live with my Aunt Beth. I wanted to get as far away from Trout Creek as possible. Mother had also spent her life looking for love and purpose. The constant abuse and fear for the safety of my 2 sisters caused her to finally leave Horace. Mother and my 2 sisters caught a ride with a friend to Salt Lake City, where she moved in with my grandmother until her divorce was final. Just knowing they were out of Horace's clutches eased my mind. What began as babysitting for Bobby, a 6-year-old blind boy, would turn into mother assuming the role as sole caregiver for 26 handicapped children. Later, she helped establish the Opportunity Center, Utah's first school for multiple handicapped children. Oh, that's great. That's great. Among her honors, Helen Keller wrote, through Miss Nelson's efforts, she has changed the words hopeless to hopeful, useless to useful, and best begotten to never should be forgotten. President Dwight Eisenhower presented Mother with a presidential citation for meritorious, I'm going to butcher that, merit with a Russ on the end, Meritorious, Merit. I can't say it. I know it's merit with the other part, y'all. I'm sorry. And outstanding service for the handicapped persons and for the employment of the handicapped. Although there were accolades and praise, she knew it was the children who had rescued her. She gave credit to the children who had opened her blind eyes and set her on a path to her greatest fulfillment. Rewards beyond measure have been mine by the love of these children. They have contributed many things to make my life a richer and fuller one. Several hundred children have received my love, care, and labor. They have all given love to me in return. I am not ashamed that so many of them have found a feeling of belonging, security, and love. I am thrilled to see children kept busy, interested, progressing, and happy. I feel it's been the biggest investment with the greatest dividends. Mother had fulfilled her purpose after her dreams had laid dormant for years. I owe so much to her for all the sacrifices she endured and wish she were present so we could celebrate our freedom together. It ignited a spark in me, making me realize that I too could resurrect my dreams and have success and love. All right, y'all. I'm stopping here because it's Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving. I hope that everyone had a good holiday yesterday. I know for myself it was a little rough. I found myself going through different types of emotions. I love the holidays, but I kind of been in a little bit of a funk, if I'm being honest, this year. I think the weight of loss is kind of sitting on me when it comes to it. And I don't know, it's been made easier for me in the wrong way. Okay, let me explain. So that's the end. You could leave. I'm rambling now at this point. I was off just for Thanksgiving, which meant that I could not go and be around a bunch of family because I don't have a lot of immediate family where I'm at. The only person who's here where I'm at is my mom, right? So not being with my other family makes it easier because I'm not seeing the faces that I would see normally sitting at the table. And I kind of feel like I'm in this space where I'm kind of avoiding it a little bit because it's just easier to not deal. But I'm very much so aware of the people who are no longer here. And I feel like it's just getting sadder because the list is just growing. I feel like the pandemic really took a hit. And a lot of us have spent so much time trying not to drown that we haven't really got a chance to really feel. And I think this Thanksgiving, I really felt it. I felt the loss. I felt it. So for those of you who were kind of in my space where you were up and down, I want you to know you're not by yourself, that I too am kind of feeling the weight of loss. And I hope you all surrounded yourself with people who, make it a little bit easier. If you weren't able to, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's literally a moment by moment thing sometimes when it comes with dealing with grief. But I want you to let you know that I'm here and you aren't alone. I'm sending lots of virtual hugs, and I hope that, it gets more bearable. Because I told somebody the other day, when you've lost someone, especially like a sibling, your mother, your father, anyone, that best friend, anyone that is of value to you, you feel it, right? And it's never ending, and there's like that little space in your heart that is empty. And I just want to let you know that you're not alone. Sorry for crying. But I hope that you know that. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Sorry for my little ramble, but I know the holidays are rough, and you're not by yourselves. Keep pushing, because we're going to make it. It's not always easy, but we're going to make it. Until next time.